Okay, oplan kalusugan sa DepEd. Halina't alamin atin ang tuklasin, mga health programs ating palaganapin. School-based feeding program ating pagtibayin. Wastong pagkain ating ihahain, mga batang kulang sa timbang. Ating pakakainin ng Go, Grow, and Glow. Adolescent reproductive health ay gawing gabay at patnubay ng batang mausisa ay di maranasan. Ang early pregnancy ay maiiwasan. Kalusugan ay mahalaga sa edukasyon ng mga bata. Tayo na't magkaisa, halina tayo'y sumama. Tara na, okay, oplan kalusugan sa DepEd. Halina't alamin atin ang tuklasin, mga health programs ating palaganapin. Tara na, okay, oplan kalusugan sa DepEd. Halina't alamin atin ang tuklasin, mga health programs ating palaganapin. National Drug Education Program or NDEP kung tawagin. Ito'y paigtingin, mga bisyo'y alisin. Sigarilyo at droga'y dapat nang puksain. Water sanitation and hygiene in schools ating kompletuhin, 3 stars ay abutin. Malinis na tubig, segregated na toilet, group hand washing at may napkin na rin. Kalusugan ay mahalaga sa edukasyon ng mga bata. Tayo na't magkaisa, halina tayo'y sumama. Tara na, okay, oplan kalusugan sa DepEd. Halina't alamin atin ang tuklasin, mga health programs ating palaganapin. Tara na, okay, oplan kalusugan. Ng mga guro at kabataan, school mental health program.
Sa ngadan inmula tigto mahido diya sa langon mahido, maulo away madatan si dato inmula. Sinimula sa mahido diya sa langon mahido, sinimula sa efek kagaga away hagdi da sa kadatuan diya sa sabuhanan agdaw. Nimula ko na da sa agfituan away pangunutan kay taman malugay. O dato inmula punin kay diya kaniko, studio ko kami diya sa mado tapang. Away tulok ko kami diya sa matuda dalan ko. Sa dalan sa mado tao, hinumili ko away hiniduan ko taman malugay. Dato inmula yaka agpandaya do kami, matalas diya sa tigto dalan ko. Ani inda makaukit kay diya sa dalan sa mado nalanggatan ko away natapangan. Dato mula agugpa diya los langit, bagay ko diya kanami langon sa langon kapionon, away bagay ko ma diya kanami sa langon kapionon diya sa hudi agdaw, away diyo ko kami diya sa lanaw afoy, away produfi ko kami diya sa kadatuan ko sa Bulawan bayak ko. O dato mula. Amen.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Sa ngalan ng Panginoon na pinakamahabagin at pinakamaawain, lahat ng kaluwalhatian at pagpupuri ay sa Panginoon lamang. Ang Panginoon ng lahat ng nilalang, ang pinakamahabagin at pinakamaawain. Ang tanging may hawak sa araw ng paghuhukom. Ikaw lamang ang aming sinasamba at ikaw lamang ang hinihingan ng tulong. Inyo po kaming patnubayan sa matuwid na landas, sa landas ng mga taong binigyan ninyo ng biyaya, at hindi sa landas ng mga taong tumanggap ng puot at galit, at lalong hindi sa landas ng mga taong napaligaw ng patnubay. O Panginoon, ibigay niyo po sa amin ang katiwasayan sa mundong ibabaw, at gayon din ang katiwasayan sa araw ng paghuhukom. At ilayo niyo po kami sa lumalagablab na apoy. Amen.
Magandang hapon, Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao. Hiyukum daw, mapya malulom sa lekanulangon, na imbag nga malam kada kayo amin.
Maayong hapon kaninyong tanan, maayad-ayad nga hapon sa aton tanan, magandang hapon po sa ating lahat.
Tulad nga ng paulit-ulit nating sinasabi na sa lahat ng pagkakataon ay lalaban tayo at ipapanalo natin ang bawat bata.
Ngayon, nagdiriwang tayo upang maipakita ang pagmamahal sa bayan.
Tayo ay may pinag-isang damdamin, may pinag-isang layunin at pinag-isang hangarin. Ito ang National Drug Education Program Episode 3, Going the Distance, Online Delivery of Preventive Drug Education. Araw ng Huwebes, ika-26 ng Agosto, taong kasalukuyan, isang mapagpalang araw po sa ating lahat, lalong-lalo na sa ating magigiting na mga ka-NDEP. Ako po si Mark Carlo Jao Buyaw.
At ako naman si Irene Albing Belhera. Makakasama ninyo kami sa isang programa na punong-puno ng kaalaman na dapat yung malaman patungkol sa online delivery of Preventive Drug Education. Ngayong araw ay punong-puno tayo ng pag-asa dahil ang bawat isa sa atin ay tunay ngang may ambag sa anumang matatamasa natin para sa mga mag-aaral, lalo pa at kailangan nating maisalin sa kanila ang tunay na halaga ng drug education.
Dahil ang tagumpay ng edukasyon ay tagumpay nating lahat.
Dito lang yan sa National Drug Education Program Episode 3, Going the Distance, Online Delivery of Drug Education.
Live po tayong napapanood sa DepEd Philippines at saan mang panig ng ating bansa. Tayo ay masayang-masaya dahil sa kabila ng lahat ng ating pinagdadaanan sa makalipas na isang taon ay nagagawa pa rin nating ngumiti at tumawa dahil tayo ay naniniwala na mayroong pag-asa.
Siyempre, no, lalo pa Sir Mark at alam natin na kung mayroon tayong nag-iisang layunin at siyempre, maipapaabot din natin ang pagmamahal at malasakit sa ating kapwa. Itong mga panahon na kailangan nating magkaroon ng iisang mitiin, iisang layunin at iisang direksyon tungo sa mas magandang bukas upang maipanalo natin ang laban para sa kinabukasan ng ating mga kabataan. Pero Sir Mark, bago tayo magsimula, pasalamatan natin ang Golden Voice behind the Oplan Kalusugan sa DepEd or OK sa DepEd theme song, words by Ma'am Luz Veninda G. Ikawalo, Ma'am Everlinda E. Hiltendes, Ma'am Elaine Joy G. Ikawalo, and performed by Ma'am Rocheline Mayoral.
At sa ating dasal naman, Ma'am Irene, ay nakita natin ang panalangin ng mga dulangan manobo, mga Muslim, mga Kristiyano, at ito ay nagpapakita lamang na tayo ay nagkakaisa sa buong Rehiyon 12 at sa buong Pilipinas. Ito ay mga kuha mula sa Bayang Pinagpala, Kalamansig, Sultan Kudarat. Tunay ngang ang bawat isa ay mahalaga dahil ang bawat desisyon natin ay may ambag sa ikabubuti ng ating bayan, lalong-lalo na kung ito ay patungkol sa pagpapaunlad ng ating kaalaman patungkol sa Preventive Drug Education at kasama natin ang mga kaguruan, mga School NDEP Coordinators, Tobacco Control Coordinators, Youth Formation Coordinators, BKD Coordinators, School Health Personnel, mga magulang, mga stakeholders, mga mag-aaral at lahat ng mga taong may kinalaman sa pagbibigay kaalaman tungkol sa drug education. At bago tayo magpatuloy, Ma'am Irene, sa ating mga gagawin ngayon, ay ipasyal muna natin sila sa isang rehiyon na binibigyan ng halaga ang pangarap ng bawat bata.
Sa rehiyong ito, Sir Mark, na kung saan tayo nagmula, ay hindi lang natin hinahabi ang kaalaman, kundi hinahabi rin ang bawat hibla ng mga taong magbibigay ng mas maliwanag na daan para sa ating mga kabataan. Dahil dyan, Sir Mark, panoorin natin ito.
Nagka-pandemya man, patuloy pa rin ang ating pag-usbong bilang isang pamilya, bilang isang pamayanan, at bilang nagkakaisang Pilipino.
Ang Pilipinas ay tunay ngang pinagpala ng iba't ibang mga magagandang tanawin na ating may pagmamalaki bilang mga Pilipino. Atin tong pagyayamanin para sa mga susunod pang henerasyon.
Ganon rin ang makikita sa rehiyon na umaabanse patungo sa kalidad na edukasyon para sa lahat. Ang Rehiyon 12, ang Rehiyon Soc Sergeant.
Tara at maglibot tayo sa rehiyong pinagpala, rehiyong puno ng pag-asa para sa mga bata.
Ako si Irene Abing Belhera.
At ako naman si Mark Carlo Jao Buyaw at ito ang Biyaheng 12, Biyaheng Abanse.
Okay? So, yan, Sir Mark, at nakapaglibot-libot tayo.
Ang Soc Sergeant ay isang rehiyon ng Pilipinas na matatagpuan sa gitnang Mindanao. Ang pangalan ay acronym na kumakatawan sa 4 na lalawigan ng rehiyon. Sa kasalukuyan, ang rehiyon ay may 45 munisipyo at 1,195 mga barangay. Binubuo rin ito ng mga lungsod na siyang naging sentro ng komersyo sa buong rehiyon.
Malayo man ang narating ng sibilisasyon dito, ang Rehiyon 12 o Soc Sergeant ay tinaguri ang melting pot of culture and traditions dahil binubuo ang rehiyon ng mayamang kultura ng mga katutubo, ng mga Kristiyano at ng mga Muslim. Higit pa sa mga larawang nakikita, ang tunay na kahulugan ng Rehiyon 12 ay pagkakaisa ng mga tao. Higit sa mga tanawing nasaksihan, ang tunay na saya na nararamdaman ng mga batang Socs habang tumatalima sa mga dapat nilang gawin bilang mamamayan, ang tunay ngang pinahahalagahan. Ang pinakamahalaga ay ang mga bagay na hindi nakikita ng iyong dalawang mata.
Ang mga tanawin ay isa lamang sa mga simbolo na nagpapakita kung gaano ba katatag ang Rehiyon 12 bilang isang komunidad, bilang isang rehiyon sa mga hamong tinanggap at pinagtagumpayan. Ang Rehiyon 12 ay piniyayaan na iba't ibang magagandang mga tanawin. Ngunit maliban dito ay biniyayaan ito ng mga taong
punong-puno ng pag-asa para sa bansa. Mga taong iniingat ang yaman ng bawat munisipalidad dahil ang mga taong ito ang mangangalaga sa mga susunod pang mga henerasyon ng buong rehiyon. Hindi nito matutungkasan ang katapangan, katatagan at kabayanihan ng mga taong gumagawa ng mga bagay para sa ikakaunlad ng bansa.
Dito sumasalamin ang kahalagahan ng edukasyon na siya namang naging isa sa mga prioridad ng buong rehiyon. Wika ng ating pambansang bayani na ang kabataan ay ang pag-asa ng bayan. Kaya binibigyan ng pansin ang mga programa sa edukasyon tulad ng pagbibigay katuparan sa mga programa ng National Education Program o NDEP at iba pang mga aktibidades.
Dito, itinuturo na kailangang maniwala ka na kaya mo. Maniwala ka sa sarili mo dahil kung ito ay magagawa mo, tiyak na may totoong pagbabago.
Habang tinatapos ang mga pahina ng kasalukuyang panahon ay magbubukas naman ng oportunidad ang mga susunod na henerasyon na ang bitbit ay malasakit at pag-asa na haharapin nating lahat sa makabagong bukas na may pagpupunyagi dahil alam nating ang bawat bata ay tunay nang magwawagi dahil ang tagumpay ng edukasyon ay tagumpay nating lahat. Hayan, at nakita na ninyo kung para kanino tayo nagpupursigi sa lahat ng ating mga ginagawa bilang isang kagawaran at bilang isang mamamayan.
Ito ang mga bagay na nagbibigay inspirasyon para sa lahat. Laging pakatatandaan na ang tunay na susi ng tagumpay ay makakamit kapag naghahawak kamay.
Sa sama-samang pag-aksyon, makahanap ng solusyon. At sa sama-samang pagpupunyagi, buong bayan ay magwawagi. Serbisyong may integridad,
Kalidad
angat,
at tapat.
sikat, kasali lahat,
Kasama lahat,
para sa lahat. Ito ang Biyaheng 12, Biyaheng Avanse!
Ayan, Sir Mark, at nakapaglibot-libot po tayo sa ating rehiyon na kung saan makikita ang iba't ibang yaman ng bansa tulad ng the largest pamilok o naglalakihan at fresh na tuna. Ang mga hinabing tela ng tinalak na may makabuluhan at mayamang kasaysayan. Nung mga masaganang mga kabundukan at karagatan, malawak na kapehan, pinyahan, palayan at marami pang iba.
Hindi lamang yan, Ma'am Irene, dito rin makikita sa rehiyong ito ang mga taong pinagbuklod ng panahon at pagkakataon na ang pinakaunang hangarin ay mabigyan ng magandang kinabukasan ang bawat kabataan. Ang rehiyon 12, ang rehiyong Soc-Surgen.
Yes, check na check. At sa buong programa ay may mga mahahalagang link na kailangan nating malaman at ipa-flash po natin ito sa ating screen sa tulong ng ating mga kasamahan mula sa DepEd Tech Unit. At ngayon, Sir Mark, na nasa episode 3 na tayo ng ating webinar series. Ano-ano ba ang mga natutunan mo sa ating mga topics mula sa episode 1?
Ayan, ang damin kong natutunan last time, Ma'am Irene, sa episode 1, titled Helping the Youth Stay Drug-Free Through Literacy with Professor Francis Grace Ducapante. Maliwanag na ibinahagi ang kahalagahan ng media literacy to develop the skills of our young people to think. Use critical thinking para i-validate kung tama ba ang mga information na nakita at naririnig at kung credible ba ang source. Sa episode 2 naman po, Ma'am Irene, ano ba yung mga takeaway dito?
Well, Sir Mark, sa ating second episode with Dr. Grace Gomez with the topic Psychosocial Support for Students at Risk for Substance Use, binigyan ng emphasis na importanteng magkaroon ng magandang relasyon ang pamilya at magkaroon ng supportive environment upang malesen ang risk ng ating mga kabataan sa paggamit ng mga psychoactive substances. At ito pa, importanteng maramdaman ng mga kabataan na may tumatanggap at nakikinig sa kanila kahit nasa remote learning tayo due to pandemic, di ba?
Tama ka dyan, Ma'am Irene. At ngayong araw naman po ay sabay-sabay tayong matututo ng mga usaping may kinalaman sa drug education na tunay ngang makatutulong sa ating mga kaguruan, mga magulang at higit sa lahat sa ating mga kabataan.
Yan, tumpak, Sir Mark. At Sir Mark, nakikita natin na marami ng mga mensahe sa ating comment section. So, masaya tayo dyan na maraming nanonood sa atin. Ngunit, bago tayo pumunta maya-maya sa ating guided kamustahan, ay magkakaroon muna tayo ng paglalakad ng iba't ibang mga kinakailangan nating malaman.
At bilang isa sa mga haligi ng Dangerous Drug Board, sinisigurado niya na ang lahat ay nasa maayos na kalagayan habang nagpapatuloy ang mga operasyon sa buong sistema, lalong-lalo na sa kanyang mga nasasakupan.
Upang simulan ng ating makabuluhang paglalakad ng ating topiko sa araw na ito, ating bigyang pugay ang ating Executive Director of the Dangerous Drug Board, Undersecretary Earl P. Saavedra Sese. Sir?
Isang magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Kung may isang bagay na sigurado tayo sa gitna ng lahat ng nangyayari sa ating paligid ngayon, ito ay yung need to adjust and deal with the new normal. Marahil hindi nawawala ang mga katagang ito sa pang-araw-araw na pakikipagsapalaran natin. We have to deal with it, we need to live with it. Ika nga nila, life must go on no matter how difficult the struggle may be. Ganito rin ang nararamdaman natin sa patuloy natin na gawain at advokasya patungkol sa drug abuse prevention and control. Paano ba natin mas maipapalawig ang mensahe ng pag-iwas at pagsugpo ng iligal na droga na kahit may pandemya ay hindi pa rin mawawala ang momentum ng ating seryosong pakikipaglaban dito. Siguro hindi sumagi sa isipan natin na darating ang punto that we have to go digital and promote our actions online. Just like how we innovate our service delivery modes. Siguro dati iniisip lang natin na such effort can be part of our creativity and it can be done soon. Ngunit ngayon, we are forced to innovate and implement something just like what we do today as we continue the NDEP Webinar series natin, which DepEd started in 2020 and the rollout was successfully done. Dati naghihintay lang tayo ng pagkakataon na may training patungkol sa anti-drug advocacy. Ngayon, a simple click can bring the message and resonate the advocacy right before your face on screen. We have reached this far at napatunayan natin na kaya naman pala, pwede naman pala. Nakasalalay sa prevention aspect ang pagsugpo ng patuloy na salot na dala ng droga sa bawat mamamayan at lipunan. Kaya nga mahalaga ang katagang pensions. Sa ibang bansa, nag-develop sila ng slogan na just say no. Isang powerful na sagot at malaman na pagtugon upang ma-remind ang bawat mamamayan na dapat hindian ang paggamit ng droga at hindi ito solusyon sa bawat problemang hinaharap ng isang tao. Noong sinaunang panahon, kasama ng ipinaglalaban na advokasya ang papel at lapis. Ngayon, ang bawat computer, ang bawat cellphone ay may kaparehong impluwensya upang palaganapin ang isang mahalagang adhikain. Sa pagkakataong ito, nais ko rin pong gamitin ang oportunidad upang ibahagi ang detalye ng katatapos lang na household survey on the patterns and trends of drug abuse in the Philippines. Isa po sa magandang balita ay ang pagpapatotoo ng survey results na mas naiintindihan ng ating mga kababayan ang kahalagahan ng kampanya kontra droga dahil sa mga programa na patuloy na ipinapatupad ng pamahalaan tulad ng anti-drug advocacy at seminars. Naging motivation po ito ng mga ahensya ng gobyerno na mas pagbutihin pa ang messaging campaign para masiguro ang buy-in involvement at ownership ng ating mga mamamayan sa kampanyang patuloy nating inilulunsad. For and on behalf of the Dangerous Drugs Board, pinasasalamatan ko ang kagawaran ng edukasyon at iba pang mga katuwang natin sa pagpapalawig ng agenda ng paggamit ng drug-free Philippines. Enjoy the session and may you learn in the able hands of our effective and well-respected resource person.
Ayan, maraming salamat po sa ating Executive Director of Dangerous Drug Board, Undersecretary Earl P. Saavedra Sese.
Yes, Sir Mark, at tulad din ng sinabi ni Yusek Earl, the need to adjust and deal with the new normal, yung kanyang mga words, no? Dahil nasa kabataan, magsisimula ang tunay na pagbabago at pag-asa.
At kaisa po kami sa lahat ng inyong mga plano at direksyon, sa lahat ng mga sangay, sa lahat ng mga rehiyon at ng buong kagawaran ng edukasyon. Nagbago man ang ating mga pamamaraan ay hindi naman nagbago ang ating layunin. Tayo ay nagagalak dahil namumutawi pa rin sa ating ang mga ngiti sa puso ng bawat kasapi ng kagawaran. Ngayon, dumako naman po tayo sa mensahe na nagpapakita ng pagmamahal sa bawat miyembro ng ating lumalawak na pamilya.
Ating bigyang pugay ang ating Medical Officer 4, School Health Division, Bureau of Learner Support Services ng Department of Education, Dr. Mariblanca Piatos. Doc, magandang hapon po.
Welcome to our third episode of the National Drug Education Program webinar. It is our hope that you will continue to be with us even up to our last episode. If you would recall, we talked about psychosocial support for students at risk of substance use. We learned how to assist, how to support the people around our learners for them to be able to avoid or prevent the use of drugs. This afternoon, isa na namang mahalagang talakayan ng ating matutunghayan dahil ito ay napapanahon sa kasalukuyang sitwasyon natin sa pandemya. Our speaker will discuss online delivery of preventive drug education. Since we had a COVID-19 pandemic, we had no face-to-face classes that were conducted. Same goes with our career. The OKD Pro
Okay, Sir Mark, no, baka lost connection or medyo mahina siguro yung internet connectivity ni Dr. Mariblanca Piatos.
Ayan,
Hello? Okay
maraming
po.
salamat po. Yes, Ma'am Irene?
Maraming salamat po, Dr. Mariblanca Piatos. Siguro ay medyo mahina yung internet connectivity doon, kaya medyo static yung message ni Dr. Mariblanca. Pero alam natin, no, na masaya siya at meron tayong mga ganitong aktibidades. At maraming salamat po, Dr. Mariblanca Piatos, our Medical Officer 4, School Health Division, Bureau of Learner Support Services ng Department of Education. Ngayon naman, Sir Mark, let us introduce our resource speaker who will be sharing a lot of this about going the distance, the online delivery of drug prevention education.
Yes, Ma'am Irene. Teacher Aichi, as she is fondly called by her colleagues and students, is an assistant professor at the College of Education. She graduated with a degree in Bachelor in Secondary Education and Master's in Education in Health Education from the University of the Philippines College of Education, and another master's degree in special education from the Philippine Normal University. Aside from teaching, she is also the former advisor of the UPC Ed Student Council, advisor of Pedagogia, former chair of Student Teaching Committee, and presently serves as the Health Education Liaison Officer of the college, a Drug Education Committee member, and the Executive Secretary of the ASEAN Training Center for Preventive Drug Education, housed in the UP College of Education.
Her passion in teaching is also translated into her involvement in research, IEC materials development, and various extension work, namely the Happy Days or the Health Advocacy Promotion and Instruction, community-based projects, training, seminar workshops, conferences, and webinars in teacher education. She is also an advocate of Angel's Walk for persons with disabilities and the art for special children. Furthermore, she is an advocate in preventive drug education, health literacy, and of course, life skills training. And to keep up with the recent developments in knowledge and skills pertaining to health, she recently trained in Gurong Pahinungod Psychological Support and is now a psychological support volunteer. Likewise, attended local and international online webinars.
Yes, Ma'am Irene, and moreover, she makes sure to balance work with spiritual reflection, taking care of her pets, cooking, gardening, biking and walking, reading, listening to music, and has learned to play basic ukulele and watching movies and K-dramas. She constantly reminds her students, her families, colleagues, and friends to value their health and well-being and emphasize that health should come first in everything that they do, and is a firm believer of deeds, not words. Ladies and gentlemen, let's pave our way to our resource speaker. Let us all welcome Madam Maria Cecilia V. Zamora. Madam, good afternoon po. Yay!
Thank you very much, Ma'am Irene and Sir Mark, for that very wonderful introduction. So let's get started. So every time that we start our lessons, I think almost all teachers do this. Let's start with a very positive motivation. It may be a poem or a quotation. So can we read it together? Can we do this, teachers? Okay, let's go. Every day is a new beginning. Take a deep breath, smile, and begin again. God woke you up today for a reason. Trust in His plan. His timing is perfect. He will make a way. Amen. So I think if we relate this quotation, it's to online learning. It's really trial and error for everyone. We've been here for about a year and a half. So let's just keep on going and keep on learning together and innovating our strategies, no? And make ways to really get learning across for the child, the student, their families, and communities. Okay, let's proceed. So part of the online teaching is greetings, no? Can we do this e-greetings by using hand gestures? All right. Can we try this, teachers? Can we greet each other through a hand gesture? Me, I'm choosing thumbs up sign. It means I'm okay. What about you? Give it a try. So for this afternoon, there are just two basic key objectives. First, I will introduce you and explain online teaching for preventive drug education. Second, to recommend a menu of evidence-based and health literacy-based online resources. Simple, practical, and doable online teaching strategies for preventive drug education. So can we do a quick survey? Can you log in to this Mentimeter? So the question there is, how do you feel about online teaching? If you cannot log in, you may use this Mentimeter. It's a very simple way of a platform for discussion or brainstorming. If not, you may type in your answers in the chat box. Can you please guide me, Ma'am Irene and Sir Mark? Is there anything written in the chat box?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll give you time now. So everyone feel free to answer, or you can log into the Mentimeter. If you could not, just feel free to type in the chat box. And then later on, may I request that we read the answers? Thank you. So let's proceed. So maybe all of us in the first few years or months, here we feel anxious, no? We ask our questions, how can I add human touch or maintain student retention? How do I integrate small group work in online classes? Or how will I support my students emotionally and behaviorally aside from cognitively? Or how can I support learning at home with parents as partners? Or maybe how can I translate the requirements? How sure am I that the students will do their assignments? So these are common and valid anxiety problems that we all face. But again, how do we get resources? I think it's been discussed in the first series episode, media literacy, and it has been mentioned by Sex Avegra. It's one click away. That's the problem. How do we mitigate information overload or the lack of? And how do we make assessment? How do we truly assess students' learning through online? And of course, what are the ethics? How sure are we that learning takes place? All right, so let me just give you a background. I think we have already a knowledge on online teaching learning already. So I think to address that, the Department of Education has sought this initiative and effort. Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan. As you can see here, there are components. They made necessary adjustments in terms of the schedule and the number of hours. They're different from kinder up to high school. So it's most essential learning competencies. It was streamlined to the most important ones. And then what learning management system will work best? Because that's very important to keep learning for both children, students, and the family. And of course, there's an article that I think it's very important. And when teaching online, there should the presence of teachers must be felt by the students. How do we do this? By planning carefully what we're going to teach. Like what I mentioned earlier, the schedule, the topics, the number of hours, the platform. For the students to really feel, despite of having online learning, they feel they are connected. Just recently, I attended a school-based UPC training by UNOTC or Colombo Plan. It was mentioned there that one of the reasons for drug use or drug relapse is lack of connectedness. It's so we do that. It's more challenging now because students don't face their classmates. They don't see their teacher or classmates. They lack social greetings, no? they're more isolated, they're learning on their own. So for the students to feel the social presence and their teacher's presence, I think it's very important that we choose wisely the activities, whether it's low-tech or high-tech activities, to really address the cognitive presence. We provide activities that will address the teaching presence, social presence, and cognitive presence. And I think in this slide, it summarizes the processes of really online learning. You need to select appropriate pedagogical and instructional strategies, revisit the content, what the subjects are, the topics, how will you present it, in what platform, and of course, observe proper manners when you conduct online learning. Given all this together to provide a safe and connected learning experience by the students. Right? So I interviewed a specialist, an edtech specialist, and of course, based on our experiences. She mentioned that knowledge transmission versus knowledge construction. So we give emphasis on this. Remember, the sources, it's a click away. We get sources from the internet, soft copies. Then we teach that, we transmit that to our learners. Then the learners use that, construct what does this information say about drugs? How will I apply it? How will I learn from it, on my own? So we give them activities, simple, doable activities, and we focus on active learning. Of course, we need facts, but facts is supported by skills for learning to really take place. So this is just another framework that we are going to use in online learning. It may be a low-tech, meaning we use traditional materials also, plus we supplement with gadgets like the laptop, cell phone, tablets. But when we do that, we think of this. And then we always go back to the content, the strategy, and then the learning experience. How will this framework will really help deepen learning as the child learns by himself or herself. All right. Again, it's technologically based, no? Low tech, high tech. Low tech, it simply means the use of simple materials, modules. We still need modules for asynchronous activities. And then for synchronous, we use PowerPoint, laptop, research on the net. Low tech, we use the phone, TV, or radio. So this is just a summary of the different types of teaching methods. It's more of what? Teacher facilitating, and then the students learn on their own. But we provide them with different technologies for them to really learn by themselves at in their own pace. Of course, there's another diagram that would explain, as teachers, as online educators, especially about drugs or health, we need to really exhaust resources in the internet, but be mindful. Remember what Professor Ducapanto mentioned in the first webinar. We must teach the students and the parents to really evaluate what are the evidence-based data about drug use, youth and drugs, effects of drugs on youth, what are the current skills that we must enhance our students to prevent drug use in the time of pandemic, prevent him or the child from using, despite that the child sees someone in the family smokes or drinks. How will we capacitate the child to really prevent from using as well. So we need to really, this is the high-tech version, meaning we need to search the net, but be mindful of the data. Just go to the reputable sources like WHO, CDC, DDB, NDEP, DOH, and such. Of course, it's structured because it has a framework which I mentioned earlier. It's synchronous. It can be done once a week. It's more of asynchronous. So more self-directed learning, it's done by module. We provide that. Teachers gave the module to guide the students with references. It may be blended, meaning there's a combination. It's a hybrid of online session and home sessions, self-directed. While with Flip, it's an example of blended learning. Students are given the materials they study at home on their own, and then a given schedule, they will discuss it with their classmates. It's online already. And of course, there is resources, different resources, and the requirements. You're going to think you're going to give a quiz. There's a tool for that online or the regular one. And how do you assess? Do you assess only for skill, affective, or knowledge? And another quick survey, if you'd like, no? You may use agenda Mentimeter. Again, the question there is, what LMS do you use? Are there any answers in the chat box, teachers? Teacher Irene and Sir Mark? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you read first, before we continue, what are their answers?
We're still checking for the responses, ma'am.
All right. Sige, just tell me, and then tell me at any point, all right? So I can continue. Thank you very much. So let's continue. So in this resource, it talked about the e-content. E means electric, no? Content, e-activities, no? e-tools, e-resources. So what do we mean by content? Again, for drug education, I'll discuss that later on. It's based on MELCs, most essential learning competencies. And it's written in big ideas or core messages, which emphasizes which concept would you like the child to ponder on, to analyze. And you can form it also into essential questions. What about this topic? What about the different types of drugs? What form of question would you like the child and the parent to answer, given the material? You post different questions. It's in the module or during your online teaching. And what is health literacy based? Meaning there are 3 components of that. You give the knowledge, the facts. How will the student interact after reading about the types of drugs? What am I going to do about it? He may look into the medicine cabinet and look at samples of drugs there as medicines, and then apply. With the guidance of a parent, what is this analgesic? What is this antihistamine or cold medicine? What is this for? So the parents will discuss the child, anak, you take this medicine only if you're sick and if it's only prescribed by doctors. The skills there is what? Communicating, decision making, evaluating. So you present your lesson. It's just one sample about drugs, no? Simple, concise, and then the activities are matched together with the concept. So here, let's just briefly walk you through with the different, where is drug education taught, at what levels. In grade 4. The main message there is drugs as medicines. And here are the topics and objectives. So demonstrate, so it's skills-based. Demonstrate and practice proper use of medicine. Again, you have to have the child supervised by the parents. So let's introduce drugs as medicines. You only take medicine when it's prescribed and you're supervised by an adult. And you're going to drink it on time. And make sure that when you drink the medicine, it's for the illness or disease. For grade 5, you move on. What are the effects of these drugs? So when you drink the medicine, cold medicine, what happens to you? Your colds stops, you get better. If you drink on time, the right amount, and the right kind of medicine. So here's the skill and the knowledge. But here, we move on. After drugs, medicine, drugs as drugs in the form of cigarettes, tobacco, and alcohol. And what are the effects on the body? So how do you teach this? By a simple video, a written article, or an experiment, but again, with parent supervision and teacher facilitation. And then for grade 6, it's understanding the concepts. Drugs are there as consumers. Remember, you only buy, you purchase, you use information accordingly. When we talk about drugs as medicine, it's really need to be prescribed. But again, because of the pandemic, delivery, we get telemedicine, we get delivery online, and the medicines are sent to our homes. But remember, it's very important that there are there are drugs that require prescriptions, and there are drugs that don't require. So introduce that concept to them through telemedicine or you introduce them what medicine you can find at home. And then, of course, for grade 8, again, why in grade 8, why do you teach cigarette smoking on the effects on the body? Because at this age, children are experimental. They try to what because of peer pressure, that because of what they see in the environment, si nanay, si tatay, nagsisigarilyo, umiinom. Ano kaya epekto nun? They're so happy drinking, they're happy smoking. What if I try it? Will it make me happy? You see? So there's teachable moment there already. You can teach already, anak, when you smoke, this will happen to you. And you support it with reading materials and videos to make the child understand and veer away, and plus, of course, life skills. Sometimes it's a child's choice, really. I will not drink or smoke because I didn't feel. When my father drank, I saw him like this. When my brother smoked, he has a bad smell. I don't like that. You see? So, teachable moment, plus supported by evidence-based material and consultation. Next, again for grade 8, after understanding already the effects, what drugs are, how will you then remember when we're teaching drug education, you increase the protective factors for them not to choose to smoke or drink and decrease the risk factors, the environment, people who use drugs, smoke and drink, or there's a presence of beer, cigarette at home. So you have to assess the situation and your resources at home also. Plus, again, with correct materials, correct strategies and skills. And for grade 8, again, it's the same thing. You offer alternatives. Aside from the skills, what will you do? If you're tempted to drink beer or try to smoke. Especially now, when Dr. Gomez explained in her webinar episode number 2 about psychosocial support. The support must be holistic. No? The child should be given a healthy environment, but because of the current situation, drug relapse happens. So there's a tendency for people really to cope with isolation. They drink, they smoke. But let's work on this as one family. What alternatives, rather than to drink or to smoke, what will we do to cope with isolation? All right. And then, of course, you level it up in grade 9. You define what substance use and abuse is. You define and model risk and protective factors. Watch out for signs and effects. And what are the strategies, alternatives to really prevent from everyone using substance use. Substance use is what? Chemicals, that harm the body. It's inability, the abuse part there is the inability to control. So here's a collection of objectives and topics. So again, it's skills-based plus facts. So facts first. If the students understood the facts, how will they understand the fact? By giving materials, supplementing materials, evidence-based, health literacy-based, plus the correct skill and the attitude and involvement of everyone at home. Because again, there's a shift of learning and teaching health at home. We involve the parents now, and health is really personal. And I think in the prevention side of drug use and substance use, it was emphasized by Professor Bucapante and Dr. Gomez, the family. Raise, increase the protective factors of each member of the family, and decrease the risk factors found at home or in the community. So here are some samples of learning management system. You have your module, you have your schedule, and then teacher announcements. For asynchronous, you need to provide. Again, everything is in the module. So it's carefully planned according to NELCs, according to the schedule. And the lessons are really simplified. And objectives, you may only have 2 or 1 objectives. And then what are the resources and the activities? And then if you want quizzes, how will you do it? So everything is prepared for the child, for the learner. For the synchronous, you make use of the web, the online. It's either Zoom, Google Meet, Google Classroom, StreamYard, and then you allow discussion to take place through the chat. So it make it more interactive. So there's a rule of thumb for every 30 minutes of class discussion, you give 5 minutes to 10 minutes group work. You can do that in Zoom through classrooms, or breakout session. You allow children to reflect. You just pose a question about drugs. Will I try smoking or will I try drinking? Maybe you can pose that question and let them discuss by group. You give them and then have them report back to class. It's analyzing what information you give them. Diba? So there's the teacher presence, there's the social presence, and the cognitive presence. Okay, for another, so I'm just emphasizing here that for every discussion or core message, you allow students to think by pairs or by group. So again, Mentimeter is very helpful. Yeah. So before we continue, teachers, do you have any answers to share from the chat box? Is there any available answer already? Ma'am Irene and Sir Mark? Are the questions, answers already?
Ayan, there are already quite some
Yes, go
good
ahead,
answers
sir.
over here po. With the question, what learning management system do you use for online teaching? Someone said Google Classroom, Google Meet.
Mm-hmm.
They have
All
been
right.
using Rapid Commons as well.
Wow, yes.
And what else? Google
Ah,
Forms.
okay. So,
Um,
how do they feel when they use that? In the first question survey, how do they feel about online teaching? Are there any responses from that question?
some actually said
Mm.
it's quite challenging,
Right, right.
and then others said what else? It's great because what's this? It's a new thing for them, but they have learned
Mm-hmm.
a lot from these different platforms. Yun
Thank you,
po. They
sir.
feel
Thank
excited as
you.
well.
Wow,
Yes.
that's very good. That's very important for us teachers. Well, at the beginning, we're so anxious. I don't know how to use this. No? But
Yes,
again,
ma'am.
we're really, it takes time. It takes time. We're improving. We're getting there. And let's be kind to ourselves also as teachers. Right. Thank you. Okay, let's proceed. So it's very important. Another framework when we teach online, in the context of preventive drug education, we should be reminded of the learning pyramid. What does it say here? Huh? The average attention rates are here. When we teach others, there's 90% that we learn what is taught to us. Then 75% we apply. We learn much when we do, then when we discuss with the group, 50%, we do demonstration, 30, audiovisual, 20, reading, 10, and then 5% lecture. So I think challenging in a sense because of the situation, challenging in the sense that internet connection. But again, we are so creative, no? Just provide platforms. There are very simple platforms which I will discuss later on. Then, again, it's the same thing, no? Passive learning and active learning. So again, it's more of facilitation of teachers and then more of self-directed learning for the students. Plus, parents or families are involved specifically for depth ed for basic education learners. Right. So it's challenging in a sense. The topic is all about drugs, and it's a very sensitive topic. Am I correct, teachers? Why is it sensitive? Yeah. Why is it a sensitive topic? No? And how do we really teach about drugs? Yeah. So we'll try to answer those questions. And this is also a model. It's a very simple model which I use in my classes by Horton. It's absorb, do, and connect. So in the absorb portion, you give the materials. You let them, it's like flip classroom. You give the materials and you assign a date or read answer this question by reading this material. So it's very structured. After reading the material, what will the learner do about the material? You have to explain it to him. For example, the question about drugs, um, drug use. You know, what, how many percentage, for example, do young people, use drugs? So you give them materials to answer that question, and then what will we do? What will they do with that if they found out the answer about that question? Would they discuss it with their classmate? Will they make something out of it? Will they make a video or a TikTok that's very popular? Will they make an IEC material? Will they make a poem out of that? Will they make a pledge? After knowing this, I pledge not to try to drink or smoke. And then connect, sharing of information. You see, there's just one question answered, given the correct material, given the correct instruction, doable instruction, minimal prompts, be able to connect, given low-tech or high-tech devices. I know teachers already, we are trying to really capacitate ourselves with different e-tools. Okay, is everything clear? Thumbs up sign or yes sign before I proceed. Clear? All right. So that is just an example of what to do. Yan, presentation, readings, demonstration, and other types. I think PowerPoint is a very flexible and simple tool, no? You can record, you can make your presentation move, you can put illustrations, and so on and so forth. Right? So these are just some tips. Again, practice activities. For example, another question for drugs is, what are the available drugs found at home? Maybe you can start with that question. So after discussing what drugs are, what are the different types, then the child, through a worksheet, remember the absorb thing, absorb activity, you give them a worksheet, no? It's modular, or you can even flash or send it through email. Then they make an inventory of that. What are the drugs present at home? And then after that, maybe you can add on, what are these drugs for? I mean, what are the uses of these drugs? Is it medical or for social? And then another column, who uses these drugs? And then another column, why? You see, there's the absorb, the do, and connect, and then discuss the answers in class or with the family. Okay, is everything clear? All right, thank you. And then connect. So those are just examples. Okay. Okay, what is this? Can you please type in your answer? What e-tool is this? What about this? Please type in your answers in the chat box. So these are some e-tools, gadgets, devices, web-based tools. Yeah, and for this one, what is this, teacher? Who answered? Is there any answer in the chat box? Teachers? Did
Some
someone
answers po.
answer? Yes,
The
can you read,
Zoom,
teacher? Go ahead. Yes, and this
Zoom
one.
and StreamYard and Google
All
Meet,
right. All
Facebook.
right. Right. And
Ma'am
this
Maria
one.
Amparo said it's Zoom. Ma'am Laarni also
Yes.
said she knows Zoom. Gmeet. Ma'am Cecil Sol. RT
Yes.
Regine said Google Meet. Winwin Soriano Bueno said Zoom. Ayan po.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
they
what about
are...
this? This one. It's, yeah, they're common and very friendly, no? Friendly to use and simple, no? Even we can do that using the cell phone. If we don't have any laptop or tablet, we can use through the cell. So learning can really take place, no? But again, the challenge is for basic ed learners, there are some families who cannot afford. So what do we do about it, no? How do we really equalize the playing field in terms of learning? We go modular, and we respect. That's the online teaching. We we are compassionate, you know, and make learning easy, not easy, but bearable. All right, through the following tools. These are learning platforms, learning management system. You can do discussions there, you can post, you can write, you can save, you can submit, you can discuss, exchange ideas by writing, sending messages. They're very friendly. And again, here are the e-tools. Of course, the Mentimeter, the Padlet, the Jamboard, and even the whiteboard in the Zoom. So for discussion, you group them, you have them answer, you brainstorm, you collect answer by polls. You give a question or a situation, and then you group them together. No, this is for synchronous. For asynchronous, maybe you can do this also, by give them a worksheet, and then if they don't have a laptop or anything, they can take a picture of their answer and then send it to you, or read it aloud, or even send it through text. So there's a variety and avenue of possibilities. Even if you're using your cell phone only, or even if you're using traditional materials, drug preventive education can take place. And with sufficient essential question, guided instruction, and output. Yan. So another assessment. Yan. How do we assess online? So I try these quizzes or Kahoot. Who among you, show of hands only, who uses among the teachers? Can that be my next question? Write Q if you know how to use quizzes, or K Kahoot, or a different platform for assessment. What assessment do you give? Later on, I will show you some examples. Can you please write in the chat box, how do you assess how much learning took place, or what the students understood? Do you give quizzes or not? Or what do you do for assessment? Yeah, and I'll give you a rule of thumb. Just give 2 minutes thinking time. Yeah. Sir Mark, Ma'am Ariane, are there any answers already in the chat box?
Yes, ma'am. Like for instance,
Alright.
Ma'am Donna Guerra said a Google form. They are using Google form as a form of an assessment. Some
Yes.
said quiz is also Kahoot
Right.
also.
Yeah.
Quiz is
Yes.
and Kahoot. Like what Galman Marian said, Nearpad and quiz is.
Wow. Very good. So, to
Very,
explore. Yes. Well, galing teachers. Galing, galing, galing.
they're really
Sometimes,
exploring.
wow, very good. Yes, yes. We
Another
need
response
really
din
to.
po,
Yes,
ma'am.
go ahead, ma'am. Go
Yes
ahead,
po,
ma'am
from
Ariane.
Claudette.
Yes,
Performance
ma'am.
task po. And from
Mhm.
Divine Abaday, Q and Google Forms din po ang sagot niya.
Very good. Yes, that's very accessible and really easy to create, no? Very good. Sometimes, later on, I'll share samples from teachers in the private and public schools. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for sharing. And now, here are the tools that you mentioned already: quizzes, Kahoot. This is Edmodo, and this is Google Classroom. You can post, again, for synchronous. What about teacher? What about for students who don't have any resources for that module? We really need to go module, or through text or Facebook, or they can take a picture of their answers and send it to you, or through a call, verbal. If it's objective type, true or false, you can read 5 questions and then you can just write down the answer of the students and then read. Just to level everyone learns, everyone is assessed and everyone is helped. That is the universal design for learning. No one is left behind. All right. So continue. Here are examples, online, available online. This is they're downloadable. They can be answered. And so this is a representation of that. I tried to make one. Yes. So this semester I'll try to use this. Yan. All right. Those are just examples on how to do it. Just go to the link, use your Gmail, then save here. So let's get time for another activity. And so I posted this in Padlet. What are the core messages or important facts about drugs that students and their families need to know and understand? So again, teachers, feel free to type in the chat box. For now, because of bandwidth, we can make use of the chat box. So I'll give you time as we go along. Ma'am Arian and Sir Mark will share the answers to this question. All right? Thank you very much. So I'll give you time to think about it. And of course, here are some available quizzes found. And you can make your own. And of course, as a summary, when we do online learning or teaching, context, what grade level, what is the design, what are your expected outcomes, and how do you implement. Again, the focus is really teacher facilitation and self-directed learning by modules, synchronous, asynchronous, and the design. They're laid out, the topics, the objectives, and of course, the assessment and the output of the students. All right. So here is the summary of that framework. And of course, the e-context. Like I mentioned before, it's very important to know these things. All right. I think I mentioned this already. And let me just emphasize on the pacing of instruction. Again, it's self-directed and self-paced, especially with asynchronous. You give them 1 page, 2 pages reading material so they can answer, and make sure that the language is plain, it's understood. It's in Filipino or in English or whatever dialect that they're more comfortable. And then ask for feedback. I have this friend who teaches in public school. She's a very diligent teacher. Every 2 weeks of the month, she meets up, messenger, call, or Zoom with the parents and ask and orient them and get feedback from them. So she can improve her learning design or teaching instructional design. All right, how do you implement it? Again, the greatest challenge here is transforming the homes to a classroom or to an office. That's a challenge for everyone. Then how many of the children will use the laptop for learning, the schedules, all right? Then what will you teach or assess? Is it more of the facts, cognitive, or you're also after how did you feel, more of reflection, or creating a project out of it? The best way is really to tap all of these things, but you need to choose a doable and feasible project that the students will be able to do by themselves. But again, for projects, for example, an analysis paper or a critic paper or a thinking of ways, alternatives, to prevent drug use. Maybe we can discuss by the whole family, since again, the effects of drugs are everyone is affected when one person or one family member uses drugs, in the form of alcohol or cigarette or illicit. Everyone is affected. Maybe we'll have a small group discussion, family discussion among the family, and make it a project. They can audio tape their answers and provide questions for the students. So cognitively, the student will facilitate. This is for high school or collegiate level. But for elementary, it's guided. Guided. All right. And then, of course, it's very important. Part of the online learning is really we rely on materials available, access to resources, curation of resources, meaning you have to download, upload, get the link, then put them in a folder, making a portal of resources. And of course, let's be mindful of the Data Privacy Act. The things that we cannot share, get consent, or posting Facebook, especially with sensitive topics such as drugs. Then make sure open educational resources, meaning you can access this, you can download this, but sharing is not that allowed. Creative Commons, you can share. Copyright, you cannot download it, you can only read it online. You cannot make copies of it. And of course, the very popular one, posting in Facebook, Instagram. But make sure again, we go back to the media literacy. How do we evaluate if the information is correct or not? And how will you use the correct information to change your drug use, to increase protective factors and decrease risk factors. So e-resources is very important. And then again, to summarize, when you get open learning, it means materials are readily available. Again, be mindful if it's evidence-based, it's reputable, it's factual, and you may use it for your work, to learn, and to change your life. In terms of drug education, you have to decide. How do you decide? By getting the correct information. Will I drink beer as my kuya or like my kuya or my friend? Sometimes get together happens online. We party online and there's what? A beer or soft drink or available. For you to decide, you need to know to balance. So where are you going to get it? Reputable information. Then this is health literacy. You apply it to school, to your life, and to work, to live a drug-free life. Next. So these are other reputable resources. And ASEAN, WHO, DDD, and there are studies also trying to say that we can go the distance. Preventive drug education can take place. Again, I think ASEX Aveda mentioned it's just a click away, but with the correct resources. So these studies really found out that yes, going to distance, we can deliver skills, we can offer choices for a drug-free life or make informed choices through correct technology, using technology to disseminate correct, effective, and evidence-based facts. In this study also, they mentioned that children are more engaged, no, with regards to drug prevention or facts about drugs when the activities are appealing and doable and based on their experience. And of course, they're guided. So maybe you want to check out these resources, no? In case you want to teach and improve teaching drug education, you might want to look at what these studies have done. Okay, and WHO, they're downloadable. So just to improve teaching your resources. Yan. Right. So this is an example. Let's just play a short clip of this.
What's up? Welcome to another episode of Life. I am Joel, and of course, as you can see, my cycles are growing out, and that means we are all still under MCO, and it has been extended as well. But it's okay. We still have our homes that we can enjoy, or I hope you are still enjoying. On today's Fight episode, I'm going to share 5 games that I thought were really good to play as icebreakers in a self-group or youth group setting on Zoom. Now, usually we play icebreakers when you're all together, but what happens when we can't get all together and we can only meet on Zoom? There's still these icebreakers to help you and your youth group out. The first game is very simple. We usually play it when we all get together, but you can still play it on Zoom. And the first game is charades. Usually.
All right. Maybe you can use charades in a topic for drugs, alternatives for drug use. You give them time to think of an action of alternative without words, and then they act it out. And then everybody can guess. You can do this by pair, individual, or by group through breakout session or in any other platforms. So after knowing the alternatives, how will you apply it? All right. So you can make use of the video or games and this one. All right. For this one, you have reaction statements. So all drug use, all medicines, all drugs are bad or are harmful. Maybe if we can use this yes, no, or stand up. Yes, thumbs up sign. No, no, thumbs down or stand up. You have an opinion about it. You want to express your opinion or you want to explain your answer. Are all drugs harmful? Are all drugs medicine? You can post a reaction statement and then give them thinking time. You can do this online or, again, asynchronous. Okay, it can be done. So here you're trying to use values clarification, decision making, critical thinking. All right. So next. All right. Or so from DDB, as Asex Abredo mentioned, you can go social media. You can post events there, and you can join the events. Yeah. Okay. So you can either join an organization, be part of a drug-free organization. It's here. I found this in Facebook, and I also joined. So aside from that, you're veering away. You're making your students get in contact, be in contact with what's happening to lessen the isolation. Remember, connectedness, it's very important. So feel free, but for young children, an adult supervision is needed. All right. All right. So again, it's found in the Facebook of DDP. It's a social relevant activity, no? Maybe a question that you like your students to explore and to find out the answer. No? Aside from the reading material that you give them, maybe they can expound, get more answers from the experts. Right. Next. Okay. Okay. That ed also can provide NDEP with a variety of resources for teachers in depth ed commons. All you have to really need to do is to patiently look and search materials you need for your class. So materials are available. They are reputable from reputable sources. Okay. Another materials available. Even a module from De La Salle University, it's downloadable. And then there's games that you like to, it's downloadable. You can share it, no? And conduct it in your classes. You can do it, print it, no? And then of course, you need also to let people know what's happening. No? All right. Any other? Yes, teachers, ma'am, do you have answers to the previous questions before we proceed? Alright. So maybe later on, this could be a reaction statement. You can flash this in screen and then ask for 2 minutes thinking time. They can write in the whiteboard, they can write it in the chat box, or you can have them get a piece of paper, write their answer, and then show it on the screen and then discuss. So these are some examples of reaction statements. And those are examples of reaction statements. And then, another example. And then, I think I've mentioned several strategies, but here, again, let's go back. Remember the presence, teacher's presence, social presence of the child, content, and participation. So active learning. More of teachers are facilitating through materials, then giving sets of activities for students to answer, either with their parents, with a group, with a family, and then remember the absorb, do, and connect. Okay, so again, I'm so lucky to have samples from my peers, no, the teachers. So she's teaching grade 4 and the topic is first aid, but it's integrated. No? Drug use or drug prevention education is integrated in first aid for grade 4 and for grade 5. So here are her examples. So here are grade 3, and then the objectives, learning, competencies. And then here are her best practices, graphic organizers, true or false, myth or fact statements. I think I mentioned this already. So let me briefly show you. This is an example of a graphic organizer. Here is the main word. So after a reading material or discussion, the child will answer what he or she learned. What are the basic concepts associated with alcohol? So it's a worksheet. It can be done in PowerPoint or Microsoft Word. You could put that in the module, or facts and myths on drug use. It's a worksheet. Again, you can use Google Doc or form. And again, in answering, there's always a challenge. Do the children really answer it? Again, let's take advantage of the parents. Again, with drug education, we educate also the parents to make drug prevention attainable at home or in the family. discuss it. There's a module, they can look for the answer or discuss the answers. That's very important. And then express its values clarification, strategy, and then thoughts about secondhand smoke. So you're just giving questions, reflection exercises. And then a worksheet, it's a case analysis for grade 9. Yes, you're teaching also grade 9. And then you can have storytelling, literacy based. This, I think it's available online also and in video form. Right? Then process along with guide questions to family, or after the story, you have the child do or connect activity, story making about drugs, what we learn from that story. It may be he or she can write it and draw it on a piece of paper. It can be also done that way. It doesn't need to be high tech activity or output. Okay, another example, and then make a short story about whatever encounters do you have in your family, what you saw, what you read in the news. Okay, poster slogans. Okay, and then self-inventory, family, skills, critical decision making, application. It's reflective, it's cognitive, it's affective. Right. So another example from a health ed class from a private school. Yan, the targets are there. We mentioned already. Here are the samples of the topics and how he does it. Drug education. Yan. So here's a lecture. Different types of prompt while online and asynchronous. So these are examples. You just have to prepare a topic and then an activity about one topic. One activity is fine already. Do not bombard with one topic, plenty of activities. No. Remember the time and the pace of the students. And you can have them make an infographic. Canva is very friendly in making, or even Microsoft Word or PowerPoint. So these are the absorb, do, and connect activities. Again, for our student, she recently had her practicum, and here are the topics and how did she teach it, online. She mentioned these things, warm-up exercises. She always start the class with warm-up exercises. Of course, prepare the materials. Because her topic is about alternatives and skills, she focused on the life skills. She gave a scenario and then let her students discuss what they're going to do about the scenario when they saw their friend smoking. How will they make their friend say no to drugs, right? And here's a menu of different online activities that I mentioned already. And then thinking maps is just the same as the word map. Right. So you give a situation or a concept and let them think of what they have learned from the concept. Right? It's a little map. And then it's a decision-making activity. It's written. There's a question posed, overcoming substance abuse. What are there's a model, decide model that was used here. So it's individually done. Or here. Or a quiz. She made a quiz in thesis, and then she had also a rubric for projects. And a rubric is a set of what elements that you want to be evaluated, and there are certain points for that. And then another example would be in grade 9 in a private school, and here are the topics. And then he introduced the topics or used the strategies in discussing the topic: situationer, life skills. I think I've mentioned this already. So it's more of reflective and analytical critical. So there's an essay, she posed a question about it, and the student wrote a reflection or an analysis. Or they critique the anti-drug strategy of the baby, or it's done by group, right? They critiquing, yes, you can do that also. And then for the class of Professor Francis Grace H. Capante, I was able to interview some of her students, only 2 of her students, and they shared their experiences because EDH 130 is entitled Consumer Health and Drug Education. Then Jaro, he found the course very valuable, relevant, timely, fun, and reflective. And one of his outputs is here, since the basic premise here is family involvement in drug prevention. So how do we communicate? How do families communicate? So we should set boundaries, avoid lecturing, social skills, and communication skills among the family for preventive drug education. And it's very important to listen, not to judge or give stigma. And then for her, another student of her, of Professor Lucapante, she found the class very practical, meaningful, develops critical thinking skills, life skills based, promotes service learning, and collaborative. And one of her works are here, the effects. It's an infographic. So after each session, remember the absorb, do, and connect. And then I think they posted their with approval from Professor Lucapante. And they shared this in their own FB or Messenger. Right? So it's really extending drug education. That's the beauty of drug education in terms of using technology. Again, if we go back to Asek Saavedra's message, one click away, you can disseminate. You know? And through the studies that I've mentioned, there's a good result for doing that, provided that we go back to the resources, if it's evidence-based, if it's reputable, and of course, you design the messages properly without judgment. Just state the facts and do not use scare tactic. So here, preventive drug education, she described it as this: preventive drug education is like a vaccine because it offers immunity to drug addiction, even without being addicted beforehand. Therefore, we need to strengthen this area in the students' health education curriculum. And some of the tips, and then we're almost done. Let me just share with you an audio recording I found through the internet. So maybe when you post this audio recording, You have questions already. So after hearing that, it may be blended or flipped or during a class, you can elicit responses provided you give the action on statements or questions. And thank you very much, Professor Ducapante, for sharing one of her students' output. No? It's TikTok, iwasan ang salitang ito. Yan. So let me just pray briefly.
Adik, kamaya, kriminal, wala mag-asa sa buhay.
You're educating people, not only the facts, but more of social, removing the stigma. And again, all the videos here are with consent. All right? So TikTok, but be mindful that you supervise. You give clear instructions when you give this as projects, and make sure that they understand the project and we do this together. Okay, one more TikTok. All right. So alternatives, you let them think of alternatives and hopefully they apply that in their own lives. And of course, we offer also drug prevention education in NSTP. All right. I apologize, I cannot share their projects because I was not given consent. Yeah. So we might as well give positive talk. When you discuss synchronous or asynchronous with the family, just give instructions on how to do my positive self-talk. Those are examples. Again, because drug use is maybe stem from poor self-love, care about yourself. So let's try to increase that love for self and self-care. All right. So those are examples from the internet also. And then self-control, alternatives. And then lastly, when you conduct online teaching for preventive drug education or any subject for that matter, please consider the health and safety. Brain breaks for 2 to 3 minutes, bladder break, water break, health break, stand up, stretch. Okay, can we do that? Let's just move our bodies and or remain standing. And then, of course, observe the 4 etiquettes. Be polite, professional, come on time, leave on time, be positive always in your attitude and participate. You can turn on your camera or you can just unmute yourselves or just write in your answers in the chat box or raise your hand and so on and so forth. Okay, it's the time for review. All right. So, in essence, here are the basic rules. Interactions should be limited to 10 minutes. Give breaks every 10 minutes. Formulate 3 or 2 essential. Then 45 minutes only of synchronous or less. And then just answer one question, essential question per topic. Then choose friendly platform. And minimize disruption. Unmute. And facilitate. If you have using Zoom, maybe you can ask your student to help you out. Prepare for technical issues. And then remember this. We try to really do with situations. We don't really rely on high-tech materials or apps. We can also rely, let's innovate our low-tech materials. They are useful in learning as well. And here is a summary. of the things that we do, especially when it's teaching online and it's on preventive drug education. And so this would be the last dive. Are there any, maybe you can think of this, no? As we close this webinar, what what you know now and what will you do now about preventive drug education. So I'll give you time to put everything in the chat box. And then I'd like to acknowledge everyone who helped me. And then here are my references. And then it's time to ask your question or to share. And then thank you for your kind attention. Hello, ma'am. Hello, teachers. Teachers. All right.
Okay, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for all the things that you have mentioned, which will really help all our teachers and all the coordinators which were mentioned a while ago. Maraming salamat po to Madam Maria Cecilia V. Zamora. And
You're welcome, teachers. You're welcome.
yes po.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
have
Thank
mentioned
you.
a while ago the different e-learning tools which we can use in order for us to deliver the things that we need to deliver to all our learners. Naka-mention din po ang ating um, mga audience po, ang ating live viewers ng Microsoft Teams which we use as LMS. Yes po. They also mentioned po kanina, ma'am, yung flip grid for empowering the voice of the learners and letting them express themselves. We also have quizzes for formative assessment, MS Forms for summative assessments, per deck, and Minecraft Education Edition. And all of these things are game-based learning. Maraming salamat po. Yeah, hey, and we really have learned a lot. Ngayon naman po, basahin natin yung mga interesting comments po ng ating mga kasabahan na nasa online po, okay?
Yes.
From Christine Carol E. Silva, Teacher 1 from Paninsingin Elementary School, SDO Lipa City, Region 4, Calabarzon. This very interesting topic that will really help a lot the teachers on how to deliver drug education through online. Ayan, maraming salamat daw po.
Welcome po.
Yes,
We
Sir
also
Mark.
have, yes ma'am, Irene.
We also have a message, no, yung a message ni Ma'am Eileen T. Pancho, Teacher 1 from Baliluyan National High School, Palawan, Mimaropa. So congratulations daw po, ma'am, sa ating speaker for the information shared are important in online delivery of drug education.
Yes.
you
At ito pa,
po.
Ma'am Irene, sinabi po, it was indeed a very interesting and informative discussion on drug education during this new normal. Very informative. Maraming salamat po. That was coming from Redo S. Barbosa, Teacher 3, Guidance Designate from SDO APRA. And we also have this one from Ma'am Olivia F. Bautista, Teacher at SDO Lipa City, Calabarzon 4A. Very useful and informative. Congratulations. Wow. Those are really positive things na natin po natin from our viewers. Thank you so much po.
Teachers, did they answer the last, yung parang review questions? What I know, what I will do now. Did they answer that? Maybe we can request if someone, like, if they only like to answer.
One response here, ma'am. The first question you posted a while ago.
Yes.
What are the core messages or important facts about drugs that students and their families need to know and understand? Meron po tayong response dito from Aliza Odenes Mariano. Sabi po niya, we can start talking to our children about drugs. Explain to them what drugs are, their functions, and which drugs are harmful and illegal. Ito po yung mga responses.
Wow, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Do you have any questions or sharing of experiences? Meron kaya? Have any questions po?
Ayun, all I can see, ma'am, is nagpapasalamat po sila and they are saying congratulations because the things that we have heard this afternoon are very useful to all of us. Thank you so much daw po.
You're
Ayun.
welcome. Oo, when we teach, really, no, teachers talaga, no, we exhaust resources. We bear in mind how, if I'm the student, how will I accept this? How will I use this information? Lagi yun ang mind frame natin, ano, paano kaya gagawin ng estudyante ko to? Paano kaya siya tutulungan ng pamilya niya? And of course, yung media literacy from webinar 1, webinar 2, episode 2, it's when you teach drug preventive education, kasama siya eh. Yung information plus the support of the family. Especially now, we're with family. We're with families. Na dapat pinag-uusapan ng kalusugan. Thank you very much, teachers. Thank you very much po.
Yes, ma'am. Kahit nga po kami, I'm a nurse po by profession.
Wow!
Yes,
Yes
po. So, nakita ko dito napaka-helpful. Kahit kami, ginagamit po namin yung Google Form para makapag-collect po kami ng mga reports kami sa schools. So, talagang 2 thumbs up po sa pag-present ng ganitong mga e-learning tools natin.
Yes, Ma'am Irene. And the thing that I have retained kanina sa aking mind is when our speaker said, in troubled times, learners need our presence online. Kaya talaga namang ipadama natin ang ating pagmamahal sa kanila by checking them and giving them all the things that we need to deliver to all of them. Yan. Because we can never go wrong with the kindness that we show to all of them. Because we are preparing them for the future, not for the future of the Philippines. Yes, madam. Okay po. Ayan, meron pa po ba tayong mga comments? Okay, and lastly, yung atin pong na-take note kanina, Ma'am Irene, was the ingenuity of the teachers, the ingenuity of everyone in the system will be the limit. Kaya naman, we are going to explore and explore until we provide the things that they really need. Kaya naman po, with all the things that we have mentioned, maraming salamat po. Ang aming taus-pusong pasasalamat po to Madam Maria Cecilia Zamora.
Nice meeting you, Sir Mark, Ma'am Irene.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much po. Okay, now Ma'am Irene.
Yes, so to continue, may mga katanungan na nabibigyan na ng kasagutan dahil nagdadala ng liwanag ang ibang tao upang mas maintindihan natin ang mga usapin at mga kailangan gawin bilang kasapi ng organisasyon, lalong-lalo na at tayo ay nasa kagawaran ng edukasyon. Maging teacher ka man, maging nurse ka man, no, kasali ka dito. At siyang gagabay sa ating mga kabataan. Ngayon, ating igagawad ng ating Certificate of Appreciation sa ating resource speaker.
Yes, and the certificate reads this way: Republic of the Philippines, Department of Education, Bureau of Learner Support Services. This certificate of appreciation is presented to Maria Cecilia V. Zamora for sharing her expertise as a resource person in the session of the 2021 National Drug Education Program Webinar Series, Going the Distance, Online Delivery of Preventive Drug Education, conducted on August 26, 2021, 2 o'clock to 3:30 p.m. Signed, Dr. Maria Corazon Dumlao, Chief School Health Division. Signed, Director Lope B. Santos III, OIC Director for Bureau of Learner Support Services. Signed, Undersecretary Elaine Del B. Pasqua, Undersecretary for Administration. Once again, the Certificate of Appreciation is presented to Ma'am Maria Cecilia V. Zamora.
Maraming salamat po. Teachers, mag-iingat po tayong lahat. Learn to self-care. Self-care, teachers. Take care po lahat. Thank you, DepEd. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much po. Sa muli, maraming salamat po sa ating resource speaker, Madam Maria Cecilia V. Zamora.
And now, Sir Mark, yes, we're now ready for the reminder. So, registration, nakikita ninyo, pina-flash sa ating screen ngayon using the enrollment key, NDEP WSP2. Ito po yung required para maka-access tayo through the course ng ating PDLMS or the Professional Development Learning Management System.
And register only once for the entire series. No need to register for every episode. Presentations of resource speakers may also be accessed through the PDLMS after the webinars. And Ma'am Irene, how do we get the certificates ba sa ating mga viewers ngayon?
Okay, so certificates are generated through the DepEd PDLMS, yung sinabi natin kanina. Upon registration, participants are provided with the enrollment key, which they can use to access the NDEP Webinar Series course in the system. And these registered participants must accomplish the evaluation form using the link na kikita natin and get a certificate of attendance for the session. So, kayan, at isa na namang makabuluhang programa ang nasaksihan natin ngayon. Pero bago tayo magtapos ay marapat lamang na makilala natin ang susunod na host region. Are you ready?
Yes, isang malaking check Ma'am Irene at isang mainit na pagbati sa lahat. At bago natin opisyal na sabihin ang susunod na host, ay sasabihin muna natin itong ating pong mga upcoming episodes. We have for September 23, 2021, the implementation cycle of prevention interventions. At ang ating speaker ay si Little Jones Espelita, UPC Global Trainer. And on October 28, 2021, the importance of life skills in drug prevention. At ang ating speaker, Ma'am Irene?
Siyempre, si Sir Santander Tidrades Iray, the Chief Trainer Drug Check of the Philippines Incorporated.
Yes, at ang sa susunod po nating episode po ay we are going to present them with the poem that we have made. Ang susunod na reyong makakasama natin sa susunod po na banghay, tamang gabay at patnubay ang kanilang ibibigay. Sila ay ating makakasama para sa edukasyong tunay na sikat, mula sa Rehiyon 12 patungong Rehiyon 10, lahat ay iaangat. Ang ating sunod na host region ay ang Rehiyon 10, Jess is it.
Ayan, so Jess is it talaga. Hello!
Hello po.
Hello ma'am, hello sir. Yes ma'am
Thank you
Irene.
very much.
Yes, Sir Mark. No, our next host for the next episode would be Nurse Dara Sharon Rizal from Division NDEP. He is the Division NDEP Coordinator of Hingoog City Division, and also Sir Nurse Reno Cabanya Sevilla, our Division NDEP Coordinator and Division of Bukidnon. So hello, Ma'am Sha and Sir Reno.
Hello po. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much, Sir Mark and Nurse Irene, for a very dynamic hosting of our third episode of our National Drug Education Program Webinar Series 2. Hailing from the country's home to a variety of wildlife, a marine sanctuary, and whose coastline is a nesting site of the endangered marine turtles.
A place not only known for its bountiful harvest on land and on sea, but also for richness and culture, which can be seen in their numerous festivals.
From the home of the country's only authentic ethnic festival.
A place not only famous for its city of waterfalls, but also for its people, which offers golden friendship.
From the island born of fire,
where love and joy never dies.
Diez is it. The best ang Diez, Rehiyon Diez, Amihanang Mindanao. This is Nurse Reno Sevilla, Division NDEP Coordinator of DepEd Bukidnon, the home of the finest cowboys, sweetest pineapples, and high-valued crops and vegetables in the world.
Maayong hapon, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. I'm Nurse Dara Sharon Rosal, NDEP Division Coordinator from the City of Good Luck, Division of Hingoog City. Magkita-kita po tayo sa susunod na NDEP Webinar Series, Episode 4, on September 23. Next month na po yan. Jess is it. The best ang Jess.
See you then.
See you.
Ayan, maraming salamat po sa ating next host region. Jess is it. Kaabang-abang po yan. The best ang Jess. Jess is it. Ayan. Thank you so much po. At papanoorin po talaga natin lahat po ng inyong mga ipapakita next episode po natin. Kaya naman, we are inviting everyone to please watch the different series and episodes that we have in our NDEP webinars po. Thank you very much ang ating mga kasamahan from
Welcome.
Region
Thank you.
10.
See ya. Thank
and
you, Sir Mark,
best
Nurse
of luck.
Irene. Nice to
Yes,
be
sir.
with you
Ayan.
this afternoon.
Siyempre, we would also like to give thanks po sa following people. The Bureau of Learners Support Services School Health Division would like to thank the following. We have Dangerous Drugs Board, ASEAN Training Center for Preventive Drug Education, Information and Communications Technology Service.
Public Affairs Service, the Youth Formation Division, the DepEd Regional Offices, the School Health Section Personnel, mga kasama natin na ka-nurse sa buong Pilipinas, and special thanks also to Mom Girly G. Azurin for giving us this opportunity, and as well to our DepEd Tech Unit represented by Mom Robeline Chutor, and also to our Regional Director, Dr. Carlito De Rocafort, CESE5, our Assistant Regional Director, Dr. Ribon Famil Baguio, CESE5, and of course, our Regional NDEP Coordinator, mahal na mahal namin talaga, Dr. Sylvia Vivian P. Galang.
Yes, and we would also like to give thanks to our School Division Superintendent, Sir Leonardo M. Balala Sese, our Assistant School Division Superintendent, Attorney Nelin Bifrinal Sese, ang ating pong mga chiefs, Chief Education Supervisor, Dr. Mohalidin M. Sway for SGOD, and Chief Ismael M. Balgan for our Curriculum Implementation Division. And we'd also like to give thanks to Dr. Rodolfo B. Bermudo Jr. Ayan, from SMME po. And we also would like to give thanks sa atin pong Medical Officer, Dr. Hannah Itak, our RIO, Antonio Maganto Jr., ang ating mga kapwa DIOs po, ang mga nagbigay po ng ibang mga footages po natin, Ma'am Gina Febi Patenio and Ma'am Maria Teresa Haligado, ang ating po mga videographers kanina. We'd like to give thanks to Sir Eugene Kahandig, Sir Alvin Ray P. Garcia, Sir Jaime Boy Ngag, Sir Ralph Anthony El Jeronimo sa Lakbay Tuklas Channel, 2 live stream, Binalig, and Sir Harold Andre, and Sir Marlon Boubier. Ayun pa po. And yes, Ma'am Irene?
Yes, Sir Mark. I will also take this opportunity to give thanks to my boss, to our boss, Dr. Merlin Hentelea, Dr. Hannah Ita, and to all the nurses in the school health section and the division of Sultan Kudarat, and all the division and the coordinators sa buong SOC Sargent region, no? Talagang nagpapasalamat tayo sa pagmamahal at suporta. At syempre, higit sa lahat, yung ating mga magulang, yung ating mga guro, yung ating mga learners, at lalong-lalo na yung ating resource speaker sa ating activity talaga today. Lagi nating pakatatandaan na may pag-asa, lalo na kung tayo ay magkakaisa.
At tulad ng paulit-ulit po nating sinasabi, sa sama-samang pag-aksyon, makahanap ng solusyon. Sa sama-samang pagpupunyagi, buong bayan ay magwawagi. Serbisyong may integridad, kalidad, angat at tapat, sikat, kasali lahat, kasama lahat, para sa lahat. Ito ang National Drug Education Program Episode 3, Going the Distance, Online Delivery of Drug Education. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, Sir Mark.